I'll call you up to you as well. I recognize you in the civilian. Nice to meet you.
Do you want me to hit the record button?
Welcome everyone to the Mount Pleasant Town Council meeting. It is Tuesday, May 9th at the appointed hour of 6 p.m. Glad to see my full council up here with me. And we have first on the agenda is the prayer and then the pledge. And we have some special people joining us. Chaplain Doug Farmer will be leading us in the prayer. And Sarah Dillon from the Montessori School, East River Montessori, will be leading us in the pledge. So Sarah and Chaplain, if you all come up and we'll all stand and you'll join us in the prayer and the pledge. Just stand up there by the chaplain. It'll be all good.
Please join me in prayer. Eternal, gracious, and loving God, we come to you with hearts full of gratitude today. We thank you for this day and for the blessings of every day. We especially thank you for families who love us, friends who support us. We thank you for the meaningful work that you have called us to do. Lord, we thank you for each and every person here today, that you have given each of them a heart of servant leadership, of putting others above themselves. We pray that you will give them wisdom, help them discern the path to take to keep all the citizens of this wonderful town safe. And Lord, we ask for a special blessing and your hand of protection upon all of the first responders who are our guardians and keep us each safe. So we especially pray for our police and fire and for all of those who love them. For each and every blessing we say thank you in your most holy name.
Amen. And Miss Sarah, you'll step right up here and everyone face the flag and we'll say pledge allegiance. Here you go, dear. You come just right up here with us this time. We're waiting on you. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good girl. Nice job. Thank you, Chaplain Farmer and young Sarah. It was nice to have y'all here. Just at the beginning of your meeting, we'd like to Freedom of Information Act. Item number 4 is approval of the agenda. Thank you, Ms. Booth. You have the floor.
I would like to make a motion to move 8A11, discussion of flooding on Middle Street, to be first, so it would be 8A1.
So I have a motion and a second, and that would be 8A1 under new business, or under planning new business? Okay, thank you for your clarification. I have a motion and a second to approve the amended agenda. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? And the ayes have it. It's time for public hearings, awards, and presentations. We have several things, and I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mayor. Council members, please join me up front. Mayor, council members, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. First item under public hearings, awards and presentations is a proclamation for Water Safety Awareness Month. Shannon, Walter, Ryan, are you here? So will you join me up front? Shannon, come on, please. brings increased levels of outdoor activity throughout Mount Pleasant, ensuring the safety and well-being of people engaged in all forms of outdoor recreation is a priority during this time of year, especially with regard to swimming, water sports, and other aquatic-related activities where safety, sensibility, and smart choices are critically important. And whereas children are our most precious resource, and their safety in and around water is of paramount concern for parents and caregivers. And whereas water hazards can include buckets of water, bathtubs, toilets, puddles, spas, pools, ponds, lakes, rivers, and oceans. And 2/3 of drowning deaths occur in summer between May and August, and most commonly on the weekends. And whereas drowning is a leading cause of unintentional injury-related death for children ages 1 through 14, and South Carolina lost 85 residents to drowning deaths in 2015, according to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. And whereas it only takes seconds to drown, often occurring without a sound. And whereas effective prevention involves strict parental and/or adult supervision around water, especially the bathtub for infants, training in CPR, using the personal flotation device when in the water and on boats, taking swimming lessons and water safety classes, prohibiting diving unless the depth of the water is known, and understanding skill levels. And whereas Mount Pleasant recognizes the vital importance of communicating water safety rules and programs, educating families and children on remaining vigilant about safety around all bodies of water and preventing drowning and water-related injuries. No summer day at a low-country pool, lake, or ocean should end in tragedy. Now, therefore, I, Linda Page, Mayor of the Town of Mount Pleasant, do hereby proclaim May 2017 as Water Safety Awareness Month and encourage all South Carolinians to help reduce injuries and tragic loss of life by practicing water safety at all times.
I am Shannon O'Brien, founder and program director of Labs Low Country Aquatic Project Swimming here in Charleston. We're a nonprofit that teaches swimming lessons. We have Michelle Sieg and Michelle Sieg and Jennifer Millar also here. The three of us represent the South Carolina Water Safety Coalition. We have a lot of people working around the state really pushing this movement of water safety, awareness around the water. And so as you, an audience, you as council, and Mayor Page, I invite you to be as cautious around the water, as safe around the water as you can be. And let's spread the word in Mount Pleasant and then to the islands. It's so very, very important. We just left the City of Charleston meeting. They too have embraced this, as will on Thursday, the City of North Charleston and the Town of Somerville. So we are appreciate your support, and thank you, and be safe.
Next, we have some longevity awards, and Chief Ritchie is going to lead us in recognizing Captain O'Neill for 25 years of service.
Captain Sean Keneally, come on up for me. 25 years in any career field is an accomplishment. And 25 years in law enforcement, especially in this day and age, is just incredible. And Captain Keneally began here 25 years ago, serving the town of Mount Pleasant, as we all do, in patrol, working operations, patrolling the neighborhoods. We've worked in many of our specialized units, to including our SWAT team, flight patrol, narcotics. He's currently serving as our investigative commander. And today we've been very busy. If you've watched the news, we've had a very trying case, and under Captain Keneally's great leadership, they resolved it a little while ago. And I think that's a direct testimony to how you lead your men and women that are in your unit and the time that you put in. He's third in command of our agency, so myself and the deputy chief are here. It falls on his shoulders to understand. I'm very honored and proud to have Sean serve in this community, and I look forward to many more years. Congratulations.
The always dapper Chief Williams will lead us in recognizing Captain Dowling for 25 years and Captain Mancini for 20. Chief?
Captain McAllen, come up, please. Captain Allen came to 25 years ago from Dave Base to close that. Came to work with us. And always been one of those guys that could, you want an honest opinion, he will give you one. Someone that always told you the truth. That's how you felt about that. You don't want to know the truth, don't ask Captain Allen. But Captain Allen is a senior captain, I think about it. He also acts as one of my battalion chiefs. One of the programs, the two programs we really do a lot of work in is our wildland firefighting program. He's instrumental in getting a lot out of that great target, which means that's the highest level of firefighting and wildland we can get. We're one of the few departments that have dozens of those that are certified to be in that program. Also, one of the most important things we do, he's in charge of our SCBA program, which is our air packs that we wear. His job is maintaining and keeping working. Protecting, he doing an outstanding job. He has such a calm demeanor. If I got anybody who has a challenging with, you send them to Captain Allen. Captain Allen has a smooth personality that really will calm people down and make them want to do what they do. So he has been a blessing to me, a blessing to this town, a blessing to me. Captain, thank you for 25 years. Captain Dave Mancini, will you please come up? But we are celebrating 20 years employment here in town. Dave came from the New York area. He was an enough profession. He was a bona fide chef. So he wanted to get out of that business and do something for a living. For a long time, we took advantage of a lot of his skills. He also how to prepare edible together, but then he learned quickly that it's not what we want. But Dave is also still does that. He still does a great job with teaching us the proper ways to cut. Even how to probably cut a piece of meat, we didn't know how to do that. But for him. But what he does is a great job. He is in charge of our youth law programs. He's also one of the state leaders for South Carolina. He's also one of those task force for the state of South Carolina. He's also the senior captain of the police force. Also one of my active leaders. He does an outstanding job. Great leadership skills. A little different coming from Captain Allen. Captain Allen is more of a contact, who's more of a, he's a little excited sometimes. Maybe that's why we both don't have a cat. But he does a fantastic job. I appreciate everything he does. And Mayor Council is a wonderful job the last 20 years. Thank you.
council members, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to invite up Field Training Officer James Edmonds. James is being recognized this evening for some exemplary work in the line of duty. Last month, April the 9th, just after midnight, he was first on the scene to a pedestrian that had been hit by a motor vehicle on Hungry Neck Boulevard. And the pedestrian was in very dire condition, in traumatic arrest. And FTO Edmonds immediately began applying CPR on the victim. Kept at it, wouldn't give up. Paramedics not get a ride, paramedics on the way. He continued to provide medical support. Recognizing the individual was in tough shape, he still chose to keep on providing the service that was required, the medical attention that was required. What was extraordinary is even when the paramedics arrived on scene, he was able to maintain the performance of CPR and give a description to the medical personnel on scene of exactly what is going on and what's happening as he's doing it. He proceeded to do it while I understand the paramedics went and got some other equipment that would be necessary for the situation, including a defibrillator. And come on up. Officer's wife. Oh, God.
Sorry, Mom.
And so he was able to continue to perform the emergency measures while the paramedics were doing other things to the victim. And he kept at it, wouldn't stop, even so far as to not leave the victim when the person was put on the ambulance to be taken to the nearby hospital. And so what's particularly also remarkable about this situation is that he was recommended to be recognized by two members of our fire department who were on scene, who were just very impressed with the performance by FTO Edmonds. So for his commitment to duty, his excellent work on the job, and for sticking by someone who needed help at this dire time, he is our employee of the month.
Gotta keep a balance, gotta keep a balance. All right, so we have a little correction in the agenda. We'll get to that in a minute when we have our speakers. So item number 6 on the agenda is approval of the minutes from the April 3rd, 2017, and the April 11th, 2017, and the financials of April 2017. I have a motion and a second for approval. Any exceptions, additions, questions? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? And the ayes have it. It's time in the agenda for correspondence and public statements, and we have several people signed up to speak.
That's correct, Mayor. First, Brooks Davis.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
I'll try to keep this somewhat brief. It's always bad to be the first one coming up here speaking, especially after such a warm reception.
Please state your name and address for the record. We'll give you 2 minutes.
Jonathan Davis, 1945 Oak Tree Lane, Mount Pleasant. I've reviewed the 2017 financial statements for the town, and I found some disturbing trends that I wanted to bring to the attention of the town council. While growth increases, the general fund has been decreasing at an alarming rate. The town transferred $3.6 million from the general fund to the infrastructure fund in 2017 for transportation and stormwater projects. Additional $1.6 million was transferred to the capital equipment fund to purchase 34 new vehicles, and $1.7 will be transferred, if it hasn't already, to the debt service fund to pay down existing obligations. In effect, the way that I see it is the general fund, to a degree, is funding infrastructure. And And all this data is on the 2017 fiscal year report, financials, the budget for the town of Mount Pleasant. And I can point you to the pages. Many of these expenditures, particularly transportation and stormwater, I believe are better suited for the TIF fund. Tax increment financing is supposed to be allocated towards redevelopment project costs in areas that threaten or are threatened to become blighted. In other words, TIF funding should be used towards strengthening infrastructure, stormwater, transportation, public safety. Instead, the town has spent $33.8 million on the new town hall. Most of that funding has come from the TIF fund at the expense of our public services, schools, and roads. The general fund has been steadily decreasing since 2015. In 2015, the balance was $1.5 million. In 2016, we had a $3.3 million deficit. The 2017 budget shows a deficit of $4.6 million. There's been a steady increase in both building permit fees and impact fees since 2014. These are revenues that should support growth and strengthen our infrastructure. Building permit fees are down 15% from 2014. Impact fees are down 53% from 2014. Growth is not paying for growth. I want to know who's on the hook for this at the end of the day. It doesn't seem the developers are, as they seem to have been paying less and less every year as development has grown, at least according to the financial statements in the budget.
Thank you, Mr. Davis.
Thank you, Your Honor.
You're welcome.
Rose Dillon.
And Rose, now we got your name right. I knew your name was Rose, and I was like, what? It's in there. So I say what's written down, but we have Rose up here who led us to the pledge. Rose, please state your name and address for the record, and we're going to give you 2 minutes to speak.
My name is Rose Elizabeth Dumumber Dillon. I live in Brickyard, Mount Pleasant, Neo 3 Gaston Gate. And I was driving with my mom to a store, and on the way there from school, we saw like so many apartments being built, like all these buildings with a lot of apartments. And I was thinking, well, where are they going to put all these cars? I mean, each family or couple or single people that live in these apartments, they're going to have 1 or 2 cars or more. And streets, and you said more traffic. People are already complaining about that. I'd like to say it's getting too much. We have too many people moving in. And it's going to be more jams. There's going to be more causes of people getting hurt, more accidents. I mean, you can't just put parking garages everywhere. It's going to look kind of weird. So what are they going to do with these cars? Can they put a limit of how many people moving in per year? Can they ever make less how many people move in per year? Because, I mean, Mount Pleasant is a great city, great town, but we don't have all the space in the world. And people think, oh, everybody's going to go move there. Well, you can't fit everybody here. I mean, it's a small piece of land. Where are we going to put everybody? It's going to have too much space, and eventually it's just going to be a crammed up little town. We don't want that, so please help and use public transportation more, and try to be more useful, because it'll save a lot of gas money and things. If people that move in will start using public transportation, and it'll be better for our community. Thank you.
Alan Mix.
Welcome.
I'll be brief. My name is Alan Nix. In regards to the document I just provided you, I have 2 requests. First, I would like you to consider calling in any other agencies, federal and or state, to assist with looking into this matter. And second, until that matter is looking to appropriate, I'd like to ask town council to consider potentially temporarily putting a suspension on building permits in Mount Pleasant. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Barry Wolf.
Welcome, Mr. Wolf.
Thank you. Barry Wolf, 1468 Pocahontas. That's the toughest act to follow in the world. Tonight, one of the things on the agenda is we're talking about ADUs in the Old Village Historic District. I appreciate and frankly cherish the Old Village Historic District. I'd like for us to think about ADUs and their impact on the rest of Old Mount Pleasant, and I've said that many times before. First and foremost, the reason I came here is because last month I was aggravated with town council in regards to an agenda item, which was an impact assessment that said we're going to turn, that didn't say that we were going to turn a 5,000 square foot restaurant into a 40,000 square foot office building. I'm proud to say that our town administrator reached out to me the next day, and along with an email to the rest of council, and the item was kicked back to planning with an explanation on the agenda that we were turning a 5,000 square foot restaurant into a 40,000 square foot office building. I'd like for us to see more explanation. I would like to see hyperlinks. As a member of the Board of Zoning Appeals, we have hyperlinks to everything we do. Can't we please just do the same thing, the courtesy for people, for our citizens, that we do for BOZA, and we do for planning? Hyperlink the stuff, make it plain and clear what we're doing. I thank our staff, and I thank our town administrator.
Thank you, Mr. Wolf. Okay, moving on to planning, new business. We amended the agenda and, oh, I'm sorry. Sorry, we didn't have anyone else signed up to speak. Mr. Cadet, I'm sorry, you were signed up to speak.
Kevin Crenane, 3032 River Vista Way. I have three items that are coming up tonight. One is a locksmith that wants to move out by Bulls Bay in the new section of town. He's a local business owner that was forced out of the dense area of town by rents, basically. A 30-year businessman or 25-year businessman. He's trying to relocate out there on the highway. He wants to put a locksmith shop on his property that he already owns. There seemed to be a lot of conflict on the planning commission. They wanted to help the guy out, but the urban boundary didn't reach there yet. But it strikes me that he's right adjacent to a very expensive golf course, which is a commercial use. It's just ringed by very expensive houses. So it's okay for the big bucks people, but local business guys, sorry, we can't help you. You know, I think it's a little bit ironic. I think that's a situation where he should be allowed to put his locksmith shop out there. And if it's an issue of what it looks like, let him go through the design review process, make it coastal eclectic look on whatever he builds, and it'll fit right in out there in the rural part of Mount Pleasant. Secondly is item number 10. There's a Lowe's supermarket coming on 41. They're looking for another year of vesting rights on their project. Things have changed since that was approved. There's a new baseball park on the Berkeley County line right there. There is supposedly a light approved by the state DOT. This new supermarket, 2 restaurants, and a gas station are going to require a light, but they're also, because they're close enough to Dunes West Boulevard and Rivertown Parkway, and to the back gate of Dunes West, there's going to be 3 lights pretty close together. Those lights should be synchronized, because traffic lights are a quality of life issue. If you have to stop at 6 lights between Dunes West and 17, your commute just went up by at least 5 minutes. You know, it's long enough. Let's just do the right thing. If they want to extend it, they should come back and look at the impacts of synchronizing the 3 lights that are now necessary, which happened during their delay. Third, I have just thing on the police and fire department. During the midnight tour last night, there was 2 major events happening. When I talk about the fire department and what are we doing when there's 2 major events, people brush it off. Just think, when you have 2 fires in town, we don't have enough to respond to 2. And calling in help from Charleston is too far away based on the current conditions. Thank you.
Mr. Canang. We're moving on to planning new business. Ms. Brown, are you?
Sorry, I had signed up online to speak, but is it too late to do it?
Oh, no, certainly. We'll certainly give you the opportunity.
Okay.
Just state your name and address for the record. We need 2 minutes, and we'll hold you to 2 minutes if you're able to hold you to 2 minutes.
My name is Catherine Hollister. I'm the owner of Blue Sky Endurance at 725 Coleman Boulevard. And I'm petitioning the town to put in 2-hour parking meters along Coleman Boulevard in front of the businesses that are trying to be accommodating to their customers. I've had a lot of situations where people come and park their car for more than 2 weeks at a time in these very valuable spots along Coleman. And also, other businesses will come and park in front of my business for advertising for days at a time as well. So, and because it's public parking, we can't have them towed. So although there is a parking garage at the Boulevard Apartments, we're restricted on signage of what we can put out to communicate that to our customers as to where to park. So it's just prohibitive to continuing to grow the business if there's not enough clearly marked parking, or if there's enough turnover in parking, especially with more restaurants opening up along Coleman. So that is my, I hope I'm doing this right, that I was supposed to come up here and ask for this, but that's what I was told whenever I called the police to have the cars towed. I was told to come to the town council meeting to ask for a petition for 2-hour parking, which I think would be accommodating to all the businesses, the restaurants, the salons, including my own. So thank you for your consideration.
Well, thank you. You're doing the right thing, and we actually had a transportation committee, and we hear you loud and clear. Thank you very much for addressing this. Ms. Farrell, planning new business. We've amended the agenda to move item 8 to the beginning of the agenda, and item number 11, which is discussion on flooding on Middle Street. Mr. Buford, you requested this to be put on the agenda, and I'm turning it over to you.
Thank you. During the last substantial rain event, there was flooding all over Mount Pleasant, but there was also flooding on Middle Street, which I went down and looked at. And during the discussion of what was going on Middle Street and construction, as you know, for probably years now, I've discussed the amount of impervious surface and construction in the old part of Mount Pleasant. And it was brought to my attention, and I don't know if this is true, that we have a policy that says drainage doesn't have to be in place before construction is complete. And that just seems odd to me that we as a town would do that at the expense of the neighbors. So I guess at this point, I'm trying to find out, is that truly a policy?
Good evening.
Good evening, Ms. Farrell.
I'll answer a few questions, and then we have our town engineer here who can possibly answer some additional. Mr. Cave, who's of course our deputy director and our building official, is unable to be here tonight, but we do have our chief building inspector here tonight as well. He can answer some questions. But typically, I think we need to make a few distinctions first with different types of development. When comparing a brand new subdivision that's under construction, infrastructure is put in with that brand new subdivision. You're building Oyster Point or something along those lines. You're putting in drainage, you're putting in the developers, the streets, everything at the time. So we've got unique situations when we get into places like the Old Village area, where, as you all know, because we've been working on a study through Public Services Committee, there is not the same infrastructure in some of those areas. So first of all, I think we need to make sure that we distinguish the type of development that we're talking about. So looking and talking more specifically about an area like the Old Village, which is built out, a lot of infill, we're seeing some redevelopment certainly occur within. I'll tell you very quickly kind of go through what our process is. When we get a plan and it comes in through the building division for new construction, or redevelopment, renovations, those sort of things, our plan reviewers in the building division will review the plans. If there's something on there that looks like there's some questions with respect to drainage on that particular piece of property, they will send it over to our town engineer, Mr. Mitchell. He'll review that, and then often, most often, what will happen is coordination between Mr. Mitchell and the builder. And they'll agree upon what sort of improvements there may need to be on the piece of property prior to certificate of occupancy. So to answer your first question at the end. I would like to explain a little bit further though with respect to one particular project, Middle Street, that's been under construction. We had, that is, first of all, the property there is a little different. It is a low-lying area. And so with that particular application, we took some different measures. And Kevin can certainly explain in more detail a little bit further. With that particular application, we actually required temporary improvements while construction was underway that we wouldn't normally require. Those were produced by a civil engineer. Also, that's normal. That's not the normal way that it's done. It's usually Kevin working with the builder. And then we do have a final solution, final improvements that do have to be completed prior to certificate of occupancy. So that particular property is a little unique, but there's actually an interim improvement before the final improvement that will occur. Otherwise, to go back to your first question about policy and when the improvements are required, it is prior to certificate of occupancy.
Okay. And I think you've hit upon a couple of things. One is the uniqueness of the old village and in an area that has very poor drainage, as we know from the study. And my concern is that if the rule is that you have to have drainage in place prior to certificate of occupancy, I could envision this happening, that the house is built, everyone's looking at it, it's fine, the drainage doesn't work because it's running water off to the neighbors, and I just don't believe we as a town would say, I see the house is built, but we're not going to give you a certificate of occupancy until you fix the drainage. And we know this problem exists. It does. And, you know, talk about ask for a lawsuit. You know, I think that's a lawsuit waiting to happen, to tell someone after they've spent months building a house, a lot of money, and their drainage isn't working, that we're not going to give them a certificate of occupancy. It seems to me, and you know, I'm not an engineer, but it seems to me that if it is a unique situation, that we know there's drainage problems, that would be addressed first, and we would be certain that works and does not jeopardize the neighbor's yard, nor does it jeopardize the house that's built by saying we're not going to issue a CO for a brand new house that people have spent hundreds, perhaps hundreds of thousands of dollars. I just think our policy of waiting to CO to verify that drainage works is a little late. And that's the crux of this whole discussion. I just think that's late, because this isn't the first house that I've asked about drainage, and so, well, we won't issue a CO until everything is fine. And I'd just be hard pressed to see us as a town saying you can't have a CO because water's running into the neighbor's yard. And who issues that denial?
That would come from the building official.
It comes from the building official.
Yes, sir.
I just think we're putting ourselves, putting our building official, putting everyone in a tough spot where we don't, if we know, as you said, the place is unique where this is happening, and it's prone to flooding, and say, we're not going to do it. And I think, perhaps this is an issue that needs to be discussed in planning committee, due to circumstances, time being of the essence. I think this is something we need to look at. And I would like to make a recommendation or a motion that we send that to the planning committee, that we can look at these things and see if withholding a CO at the time of completion is the right way to address drainage, or we should address it up front before we allow houses or whatever to be built on ground that is perhaps full of drainage water, and we know it's a problem. And that is, I'm sorry. Is that a motion? That is a motion. You send it to the planning committee for discussion.
I'll second that, and if you comment.
I have a motion and a second. You certainly can have the floor, Mr. Manning. Mr. Bustos is finished.
I appreciate it. We spent a lot of time at the Public Services Committee meeting, hearing about this from a resident who was affected. But even on a bigger scale than individual properties, we got an update on the report, the study that was authorized by this council to look at the stormwater issues we have in that part of town. It's not just the old village, which is kind of a brand and a distinction unto itself, but it's Old Mount Pleasant too. Everything basically west of Coleman or Ben Sawyer. I would like, as this is moved forward to the planning committee, which I'm assuming it will, that, and Mr. Bremer as the chairman, if y'all will pay attention to, for those who weren't there, or make sure y'all get the update on the study from our engineers to see what we're dealing with in that part of town. It's, as Mr. DeMore mentioned, to correct this problem might be one of the single largest, if not the single largest undertaking in the history of Mount Pleasant. The issues are real, and this is not just a perception. We've got engineering studies to back this up.
Be happy to, Mr. Haney.
Thank you.
You can get that presentation as well and add more into that. So,
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Mr. Smith?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd be remiss if I didn't just add a comment. I think concerns are real, and thank you for bringing them up. But I would just want to commend the staff for someone who has been in a 7-digit figure investment in your town, Madam Mayor and council members, looking for a CO. When I have some property on Oak Ridge Road, that's been my small business. My CO was delayed due to multiple issues, so I do know that the town will sit on and not issue COs until all matters are issued from personal experience. So thank you for doing your job, and I have complete confidence, and I'm sure all of us do, that y'all will continue to do what it is that you're required to do, and we'll work through these issues. As Mr. Haney, Councilman Haney also alluded to, it is not isolated to the old village. Drive by that business located at 1520 Rifle Range Road, and Madam Mayor and fellow council members, your stormwater is often on my private property from the overflowing ditch. It is a continual problem. And as one of your local business owners, I paid my stormwater fee that was doubled recently, and would appreciate that business being incorporated, included in your priority list as well.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Mr. Evans?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. Ms. Shannon, if you could elaborate on, talk about the Middle Street project, if you could elaborate on what's been done, where we are, what's being done, and what we're waiting on to try to eliminate some of the streams.
Currently, right now, they've got an interim plan in place. They've got offsetting measures, which they created a dry detention area. According to engineers' calculations, they've actually created more available storage area than was there previously before they even actually located to the site. So those conditions have actually improved as far as the availability of stormwater retention, even without the outfall pipe. We're waiting on SCDOT to approve the outfall pipe connection in Middle Street. I heard today that they verbally gave approval for that, and we're still waiting on the paperwork. There is a final permanent stormwater plan that has been approved and will be implemented and installed prior to their certificate of occupancy, which was presented by the civil engineer hired by the owner of the property. Also, in addition, our public service department released some funds to create good overall watershed drainage study to ensure the capacity of Middle Street is adequate enough to handle the additional flow. It's actually going to complete, it's going to be an improvement to that flow area. So that's where we are, and that's where we're headed.
Once we receive the permit, what kind of time frame are we looking at as far as implementing it and getting it installed?
Well, I've spoken to the builder a couple of times, which is here. He's probably looking at a couple of weeks from actually doing the project, putting out full pipe in. Yeah, he said he's got some, spots already on order, and as soon as he gets the approval from DOT, then he'll have the subcontractor installed, so we're talking a couple of weeks to mobilize and get his contractor available.
Thank
He
you,
is ready.
appreciate all the work that you put into this. I know it's been substantial, thank all the staff and everybody that's really kind of taken a broad overview of circumstances that are relative down there. I know the homeowners appreciate as well, but the sooner we can get it in, the better off we're all going to be. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Owens. Mr. Mitchell, Mr. Karch?
Thank you, Mr. Mitchell. Just to help out, and this may help going, if the vote is successful, going to the planning committee. So we have an area that we know is a low area that floods prior to any construction, right? We know that. People are gonna build a house there where it floods. How is it, because I can figure out parking lots and highways, and I'm just interested with a house structure and the roof, obviously, and calculating the area of the rain and where that's gotta go. And it comes to you, and you're already an existing low area that's flood prone. How's that being addressed so it's okay to go build a house to start with?
Well, first thing, we just make sure that the adjacent neighbor is not impacted directly. If they're filling a lot, like in this case, they have to offset that fill with additional storage volume until their actual capacity increases out of the area, meaning that the outfall pipe has been installed. You either have to have more storage volume or have to have increased capacity. They're going to actually increase the capacity and reduce the storage volume. So in this particular situation, which is very unusual, we typically have your standard residential builder plan where they provide a simplified grading plan just to ensure that they're not impacting their neighbors. This, we knew that it was an existing problem, and the builder went above and beyond, or the owner went above and beyond by hiring an engineering company to provide that interim plan that was critical while the home is under construction to do an offsetting plan to make sure that the neighbors aren't being impacted.
So to wrap that up, then, in your professional opinion, what's being done is everything that can be done, and this construction of this house is not creating more flooding for the neighbors.
The existing conditions was there before they actually moved in.
Okay.
So yes, sir, there's really there's nothing more that we could actually do. It's out of their control, it's in the DOT's hands, and we've learned that they'll be released from permit shortly.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mitchell. Mr. Karch, we have a motion and a second to send this to the planning committee for review of policy. All in favor?
Aye.
Excuse me. No, if no one can sign up, no, this is discussion only.
Excuse me,
Yes, sir.
is it too late?
Is there anyone here that would like to speak to us on this issue?
I would like to.
Thank you. I'll give you 2 minutes to address the council. Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Mike McLean. I'm the neighbor next door to Scourge, 226 Middle Street. First of all, Rose, thank you. I did witness this on another topic coming down here tonight. 2 fire trucks cannot turn onto Middle Street. Okay? Might have something to do with the traffic. Mr. Mitchell, as far as what's happened at this property, if we're dependent upon the outside company, I think we've got a problem. And to Mr. DeBay, I think this is horrible, that we pit neighbor against neighbor instead of doing what Mr. Bustos suggested, getting this approved up front. So Derek, I apologize for what may come down the road. Folks, you can't do it this way. Mr. Mitchell talks about creating, what do you call it, storage areas. The last freaking storage area wiped out mulch in areas in my yard, covered up the drain, which feeds the pumps that cleared 8 acres, according to Mr. Mitchell. 8 acres. Okay, I want to repeat that one more time. 8 acres for the town. Our pumps, which everybody's written off now for going on 7 years. You know what, folks? What happens when they fail? When they fail, we're going to wipe out 2 or 3 areas, homes, and so forth. This is a
Mr.
problem.
Kane, we are going to take it back to the committee for review.
And are my 2 minutes up?
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much.
We have a motion and a second. Mr. Blythe? This will be the last speaker on this issue. Thank you. This is a discussion only item.
I'm Dennis Blight, 610 Belzer Drive. I don't know their specific situation, but to address some of what was mentioned by the engineer and Mr. Bustos' comment, I, during this recent rain event, noticed a place that I've noticed other times on Mill Street, where a very small piece of property next to some water, Mount Pleasant water area, it's hemmed in on all sides, and quite frankly, is nothing but marsh. During that rain event, it was full of water, 2 feet deep. The water is up to the top of the silt fencing between the 4 lots, and all of them have different realtors for sale signs on them. There is nowhere for that water to go, and nothing happened. There was a duck swimming around in it, okay? It's a wildlife spot. I came back last week, and there's that much sand built into one of those 4 lots. They are building it up, and there's nowhere for the water to go, I promise you. They don't have a plan. They don't have off-site, because that lot is smaller than this one. Okay? It's just, there's no way for the water to go. I don't understand how they ever got a permit, because it's got to be below any critical line, even though it's hemmed in by streets. And by the way, if the lot is there, the street along there, not Mill, but the one that intersects it next to the boat, by the outlet of the boat parking, the drains are in the middle of that street, probably this high off the level of that, right on the ground. And you can see the drains are rusting from saltwater intrusion. When the flood tides come, they're high enough that they're causing the drain metal to rust. It's just crazy, some of the stuff that we do around.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, we have a motion and a second, and we've had a partial vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And the ayes have it. Moving on to new business, under planning, item number 1 and 2 both have to do with piece of property on 4275 Highway 17 North. The first is annexation, and the second will be the zoning. Ms. Farrell, if you'll address the annexation.
As you mentioned, Mayor Page, this property is located on Highway 17 North. It is, the border is down near Bulls Bay Golf Course, and they requested annexation, which was recommended for approval on planning.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second for annexation. I do have someone signed up to speak. Mr. Spears, are you here?
Yes.
Come forward, we'll give you 2 minutes to speak.
Larry Spears, 4253, Highway 17 North, LA, Lower Hall. Ironically, the start of all this, I had a piece of property, I got a piece of property on Dix Street. Y'all made an extra piece of property in Charlton County. And what happened is that piece of property likes to flood. Ironically, y'all talking about water being put in. Y'all annexed them in, so I decided to put the property up for sale. Luckily, I sold it, we got a contract over 2 months. So this kind of moved a bit quicker than I thought. In this little brochure, I've got a letter from Mr. Rice that he is fine with my development.
I got a letter from Dr. Sexton on the farms. I got a letter from Gary Arnold. He lived out there 30 plus years ago. He had 5 to 10 cars come by his house. I now have 30,000. I counted the other day, I just for fun. In 1 minute, I had 80 cars. That's semi-trucks and everything else. All right. So, the next picture is my beautiful little house. It's a Cape Cod, it's 1,800 square feet. There's my little site plan. The way my property is built, I have to be 50 feet to the highway. I don't know anybody in their right mind that wants to live 50 feet on an interstate. Nobody's gonna do it. It's not a house. Next map shows my property, fire department, the church, funeral home is commercial. The storage unit has 500 units on it. I think the neighborhood knows, I'm not sure, but vacant lot. And then further up, I have the Dollar General and the Tractor Supply. So my neighbors are basically fire department. Mr. Rice, he owns all the property out there, so he's gonna do what he wants to do, come on the farm. Over here, the next one is the distance
Mr.
from.
Spears, you get 2 minutes next issue. I see you signed a desk as well, but we have an approval of the annexation. So I'll call Ms. Farrell up and we'll ask you to stand aside if you'd like to speak on the next issue. That'll be done. That'll be done.
We haven't voted on annexation
I thought we had a motion and a second on annexation.
We do, but we haven't voted on it.
I know, we're getting ready to vote.
You said we haven't approved.
No, I said we had a motion to approve, I meant, I'm sorry. I'm trying to be careful with my words. So we have a motion for approval and a second for annexation. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? And the ayes have it.
First reading, ordinance number 17019, an ordinance providing for the annexation of approximately 0.788 acre tract of land located at 4275 Highway 17 North, identified by TMS number 63200000026, and depicted as new lot 2A, a plat recorded by the Charleston County RMC office, and plat book S17, page 59.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. Ms. Farrell, the next item is the first reading of the ordinance to change the zoning. Can you give us some background on that?
Yes. The requested zoning is neighborhood commercial, which is one of our main commercial zoning districts. As a little bit of background information, the property is currently zoned rural residential in the county, which does not allow for commercial uses. Our comprehensive plan recommends rural conservation 3, which are typically either agricultural or rural residential uses. Because there are some limited commercial uses that are allowed within the rural conservation zoning district. They're typically more agriculture related, greenhouse, nursery, grass and vet clinic, things of that nature. For comparison, neighborhood commercial, it does have a limitation on building size of 6,000 square feet. The uses that are permitted are things such as restaurant, retail, and service types of uses, which is what your business is, we consider a service type of use. We do talk about the urban growth boundary line in our staff report, which is located back at Barrel Creek Trail, so this is past boundary line. So this went to the planning commission for a public hearing. They did not recommend approval, but they prescribed 3, not recommending approval. And then went in front of the committee, and the planning committee actually had a tie vote to go forward. There's no recommendation.
Thank you very much.
Madam Mayor, I move for approval to neighborhood commercial district zoning.
I have a motion and a second to approve. Questions? I have someone sign up to speak.
Mr. Spears?
Yes, sir. We give you 2 minutes to address the council.
We're 2 pages from the back.
All right, okay. I did some research on that, I was kind of amazed. I did not realize that a PD, when I started playing with this, I did not realize it. In this area, you can do a PD. You can do anything with a PD. You can do storage units. I got a truck, a semi-truck repair facility. Henry, now I got nothing against Henry's, because I'd like for you to prepare a truck too. I got a propane storage facility. Now, I got a funeral home. I hope I don't need to use it. But, Henry, the funeral home is actually commercial. Charles County. I mean, y'all see how close it is? I mean, it's not even half a mile. The church is a quarter of a mile. The fire department, which, everybody said, don't be funny, but that's the way it is. The fire department says, I do bonfires. The fire department says, great, you let me quit doing bonfires. They've been to them. You know, I've been here, I'm a native, 53 years. I've been in business in here. I think all y'all probably abused me one time or another. In the last 35 years, I had to store a retail shop. Find another locksmith. They don't exist. I do it because I like it. I like the community. I can do this in Charleston County if we want me to. I'll do a commercial residential. It don't matter. I'll do a PD in Charleston County. But for some reason, I want to work with you guys. I like you. We did a good project together. I get to say it, I turned a crack shack into a nice building. Work with me. What are you gonna lose? Look, it's a comprehensive plan. It doesn't make any sense. When you can put 4 houses at an acre or field road, I drove that road last night. There's acres and 2-acre houses. Y'all wanna kill them people. Enough is enough. Make it like a Polly's Island.
There you
I know,
go.
I got 2 minutes.
You've done a great job. Thank you for addressing this council.
Guys, I'm from here. Yeah, look at let me play.
I have a motion and a second to approve the rezoning of the property. Ms. Barrett, would you call for the vote?
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Brimmer?
No.
Mr. Brimmer votes no. Mr. Bustos?
Aye.
Mr. Bustos votes yes. Mr. Carrier?
Yes.
Mr. Carrier votes yes. Mr. Garge?
Aye.
Mr. Garge votes yes. Mr. Haney?
No.
Mr. Haney votes no. Mr. Owens?
Aye.
Mr. Owens votes yes. Mr. Santos?
Aye.
Mr. Santos votes yes. Mr. Smith?
Aye.
Mr. Smith votes yes. Mayor Page?
Aye.
Yay!
Motion approved.
First reading, ordinance number 17020, ordinance to zone NC neighborhood commercial district, approximately 0.788 acre tract of land located at 4275 Highway 17 North, identified by TMS number 63200000026, depicted as new lot 2A in a plat recorded by the Charleston County RMC office, plat book S17, page 59.
Thank you. Mr. Garge, do you have a comment?
Cars.
Yes,
Those
sir.
80 cars you counted in 1 minute, where the majority of them come from the north or from the south?
They're coming from this north, going south. I've never seen how many. I'm talking about it, but I'm not talking about it.
Thank you, Mr. Pierce. Welcome to the town of Mount Pleasant. for
You're
first
welcome.
reading anyway.
Thank you.
Item number 3 is the first reading of an ordinance for amending the Bell Hall plan development. This is about the Solana Long Point Senior Living.
Yes, there you all are familiar with this request, you've seen it before, and it's received correspondence from representatives and applicants for this as well. This is an approved development plan, however, they are asking to amend it to a retirement community. The request specifically is to add an additional 4 cottages, so it would increase the number of living units on the property from 168 senior living units to 172. I've got copies of plans, the old compared to new, and as I mentioned, received correspondence, pretty detailed from representatives and applicant. We'd like to review further, but to let you know what the recommendation of the commission and committee were. Planning commission unanimously recommended approval of an amendment to allow the 4 additional cottages. Committee, however, had a tie vote and therefore no recommendation.
Move for approval, item number 3. Second.
I have a motion and a second for approval. Any questions? Yes.
Yes, spoke to the committee, and Madam Mayor, our residents are asking for us to, take a break on the growth, take a break on the traffic. That area there, as you know, we're getting ready to have the biggest container ship ever to call the East Coast of the United States. The port's growing. You saw the paper. It just, broke records. Having the most containers they've ever had. Traffic is getting really bad right there. The Port Authority's locating their home office there, which will increase more traffic. I understand it's only, a couple of buildings there, but we gotta stop. We gotta start somewhere. If we keep approving more and more density on these properties, it's just gonna exacerbate the problem. We're gonna have more and more traffic jams. I just think we gotta take a stand. I mean, they came to us they asked us to approve this, it was approved, and now they want to add more density. I understand, like I said, that it's only a couple of buildings, but we gotta take a stand, and we gotta stop and slow down a little bit until our infrastructure can catch up. I go over Long Point Road every once in a while, and I'll tell you, it's a nightmare over there. And, you know, I just think that it's time to take a stand and start saying, you know, when you get approval to develop something, develop it that way, and stop trying to add more and more density, because it's not helping the town. I'm sure it helps the developers who are building, but it's not helping us. It's putting more traffic on our roads, and it just sets a bad example. So I'll be voting against that for that reason.
Thank you, Mr. Santos. Mr. Carey?
Well, I take exception to Mr. Santos. This is a senior living facility. I don't think senior citizens contribute that much to traffic. And if anybody needs senior living, we need it, and we're gonna need more of it, and we don't see that much of it coming. So anytime we can increase it, and even in an area like this, they're not coming and going like everybody else in apartments and single-family houses. I mean, this is exactly the right place for this, and so they're gonna max it out. I think it's terrific. We need it for our seniors, and I'm gonna support it.
Thank you, Mr. Carey. Mr. Bremer?
I guess my concern with this isn't so much about the impact. It's going to necessarily have a negative impact on infrastructure. My bigger concern with this is this project can forward to council. Council did the right thing by approving senior living in this location. It's a good location. It's a good project. The developer came back with the same proposal back to council, and council said no. And now we're seeing it basically the same proposal again. So, you know, my concern here is what kind of message are we sending that if the project comes forward and gets denied, you come back and try again. And you come back and try again until you get approval. And I think that's the wrong message. I think it's the wrong process. The item just before this, you know, this council just approved a exception to the comprehensive plan. It's exception after exception to our plans. And I'm just concerned that with all the concern about growth and development, we're approving projects and then amending those projects almost immediately. So I think we need to say, if this was desired at the beginning, the project probably needs more time in the development phase to bring it forward a project that's good. But to have approval and come right back and ask for more, I think sends a wrong message to developers that a denial really isn't a denial. It's just a denial until the next time you come back to council.
Thank you, Mr. Bremer. Mr. Garch?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I had questions in line with Mr. Bremer of the applicant. Is there someone here that can answer questions as to why this is taking place? What's the change? Why are they coming back to us?
I believe we have someone in the back. Please step forward, please.
Yes, I'm Mark Mayberry, Formation Development Group, the applicant, 178 South Main Street in Alpharetta, Georgia. We originally designed our site without these cottages because frankly, we were trying to figure out a very difficult, challenging site. If you've seen our site plan, it's very unusual, almost like a tomahawk shape. And we left, if I can approach, this is the area where we're trying to add another cottage, and then we're trying to make this cottage 2 stories. The first place I pointed, we left blank because we didn't know if the town was going to require us to provide more parking than we ended up with. But we ended up satisfying the parking requirement elsewhere. Then we found, okay, we've got kind of what looks like almost a vacant lot that we left in the middle of our site because we were trying to figure it out. I apologize, we probably could have figured it out earlier, but we didn't. And now we're back to try to fill in another cottage there where you can clearly see it would make sense to put it. And then we're trying to make the other one 2-story because we've seen increased demand for the cottages as well.
Are you developing this? Are you part of this? Is this your business or is this something you're building?
No, I'm the developer. I've been a senior living developer for 25 years, and this is not solely my project. I have partners, but yes, I'm the developer.
Okay, thank you. Either for you or maybe Mr. Smith, because you made the motion, I was reading some exchanges, correspondence, and I don't think you made a condition in your motion, something about a sidewalk being placed.
Yeah, I believe that was part of the discussion we had at the planning committee. There was an understanding that there was gonna be a contribution toward, the sidewalk as part of this was the understanding. I will amend my motion to make sure there's no misunderstanding, on the vote, but, you wanna, articulate what that was?
Yeah, so right across Long Point, oh, I need to say my name, sorry. Russ Heeman, 501 Wando Park Boulevard, Mount Pleasant. Right across Long Point Road from this facility, there's a missing segment of sidewalk. And, we were looking, so that when we came in with an ask, we also had a give. So we were looking for something to improve in the area, and that sidewalk would be a very good contribution. We did some preliminary costs on it. It came to $23,500. We also spoke with the traffic engineer who's working on the overall infrastructure study for this area. And she mentioned that she doesn't exactly know what the plan is going to be, and just said if you are going to ask for that to be a condition of approval, make sure it's not tied to just building a sidewalk, because we don't know what the plan's going to be. So I think we're offering up $23,500 towards general pedestrian or infrastructure improvements in the area.
Can you please show where that sidewalk would go?
It's off the map, but it's across Long Point Road, directly across up here.
Okay.
I think it was 750 linear feet.
And it connects to other sidewalks?
It will connect to other sidewalks.
Thank you. And just back to us, Mr. Smith, you amended to include that in your motion. Who seconded that?
I also amend.
Okay, thank you.
So we have an amended motion with a second. I have other people in front of you. Mr. Brimmer?
Just a follow-up, is it Mr. Mayberry?
Yes, sir.
Just a follow-up question. I understood why you, after your initial plan, why you wanted to add more. What was your thinking about after the last council vote, which denied the 40 units? Why then bring it back again?
Well, the history of our project is, our original project, 168 units, was unanimously approved last spring. We're under construction now. We came before the council in early January. It was my understanding it was not a denial, it was a tie. So we didn't win, but we also weren't then prevented from coming back before the council. We didn't have the blockout period, or whatever it's called. So we refiled the same application with the additional offer of the infrastructure improvements. So we're back only because I didn't consider that a denial, and I guess I really think we have a good case.
Thank you. Mr. Carey, did you have another comment?
No.
Mr. Santos?
Yes, I did. I just want to make sure it's very clear. I know Mr. Smith likes to, talk about the great tsunami that's coming. I think we all want assisted living. We all want retirement living here. We know that we're growing. We know that there's a lot of seniors here. And so I certainly support that. We have a project right here that does that. You heard this little girl's passionate plea earlier. The more we increase the density, the more traffic we throw on the road. When you have a little girl like this that can see that, and can come up here and have that passionate plea to try and reduce the traffic, to try and slow down the density, the traffic on the road. And I really think that we owe it to the younger generation and the future generation to kind of look out for them and make sure that we do the right thing. And by continuing to add more and more density to property, more and more cars to the road, I see where she's coming from, and I think she has a great point. So I just think that it's approved. They need to build it the way it is and not continue to add more on. That's all.
Thank you, Mr. Santos. Mr. Smith, did you have a comment?
Thank you. I'm sorry, your address was where?
178 South Main Street, Alpharetta, Georgia. I can spell Alpharetta if you'd like.
I'm good with that. Is it fair for me to assume that you are acutely, or at least somewhat aware that our number one issue, as has been very well articulated up here several times, is real and valid traffic issues and concern? Perhaps in Georgia you don't have those issues, but I just would like to know that you are acknowledged and aware that we have those issues here.
Yes, I am, and not to make light, we're familiar with traffic issues in the Atlanta area, especially lately. But I take that very seriously, and I would point out, if I may, the little girl did a great job. I don't know if I agree with all of her points, but she did a great job. I don't think she was trying to keep additional senior living out of town, because we really don't generate traffic. We don't burden schools, we don't generate traffic, yet we're a high rateable that pays high taxes. And I think ours is the type of use that should be allowed and not encouraged to comply with the comprehensive plan. I can understand wanting to try to prevent the growth of apartments and additional single-family neighborhoods, but this is a very different proposal.
Which leads me to my next question, now that I understand that you're familiar with traffic. You also have an extensive background in CCRC's retirement communities.
That's correct, sir.
I spend a little bit of time here locally in and around the Summerby location and the Frankie Home location. They have traffic issues as well, typically with golf carts contained within the communities. I don't believe golf cart pathway is allowed on the Long Point Road. Russ, is that correct? Is that a fair assumption on my part or your part?
I think Russ could answer more technically. I can assure you, we would not encourage our residents to have a golf cart on Long Point. Summerby is within Park West, a very different type of setting. Frankie is a campus all of its own, very spread out, and that's why their residents rely on golf carts. I could see potentially one of our residents in the cottages wanting a golf cart to get to our main building, but I doubt that would even be the case, so we have not envisioned golf carts in our project.
And, technically, I think it would be a slim probability, but we could certainly run it by Jennifer Beal, who's doing the traffic study later.
And lastly, Russ, could you just speak to the issue that we're talking about here, traffic, with the additional cottage? What are the numbers? How do they bear out, please?
The 4 proposed units should add approximately 1 trip in the peak hours of AM and 1 trip in the peak hours of PM.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Haney.
What's the youngest age that someone can live in your retirement community?
Senior living is typically defined in towns or jurisdictions that have a legal code. It would be 55 and up, or sometimes 62 and up. Our average age is about 85 or 86.
But what's allowed is younger than...
And you'll have some sad cases.
One member of this council who might be younger than 55.
Right.
Okay.
That's correct.
Appreciate it, thank you.
You look at me to say that to me at 46?
I was talking about how young they look.
Mr. Haney, are you?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Booster.
Yes, and the one car trip at this one place, I think, that's not a big number. But we have to look at across Mount Pleasant. We have 438, almost 450 apartments coming in. So we have to take a larger view than just one senior living place. And the whole thing about the Gray Tsunami, I'm part of that. I know I am. But, we've kept ADUs going for the seniors would have a place to go. We've got a lot of apartments that people 55 to 60, can go to, and we're getting more every day, even though with the moratorium, we're seeing, they haven't all been built out yet. And there we layer on top of that senior living. And that's just a lot of units. And, to add 4 more, I voted against this in committee. And it's because we take these in eaches, and we really should look at this collectively. And collectively, there are a lot of places for people 55 and above to live in Mount Pleasant, some of which haven't even been finished yet. So, I just don't see us going back to something that was approved and then change it to get more, because we need to take this collective look. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Booster.
May I respond to that? I don't know if that's appropriate.
It's not really a question, it's really not a back and forth.
Okay.
You're really there to answer questions. So I appreciate you wanting to reply. Mr. Owens?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The original design, Russ, can you shed some light for me? Was it the original 3 buildings, and now you're adding a 4th?
Yes, sir. There is a new building added here with 2 cottages, and then they're adding 2 cottages above this, I think it's 2-story.
And how many residents occupy the cottages?
Each cottage is 2 bedrooms. It's conceivable it'll be a couple. We typically see about 20% couples in our main building, but we would expect to see a higher percentage of couples. I would say probably 1.5 people per cottage on average.
let's just say 2.
Follow two?
So, and then virtually, you're right at 10. And so, how many cars would something like that have? 10 or 12?
Well, it's our experience, and this goes back to an earlier answer I had, is that our average age in our buildings is about 85 or 86. And I wanted to point out here that half of our units, just about half, are licensed assisted living and memory care. That's not a 55-plus lifestyle apartment building. That's a licensed care level by the state of South Carolina, and we can only admit folks to that level of care who need that level of care. Now, we're not a nursing home, but we're more on that end of the spectrum than a Del Webb or a golf course community for sure.
What's the percentage of the age population is 85 or maybe just a little below in your facilities?
Well, our average age is 85 or 86. I mean, it's unusual for us to see somebody even in their 70s, although we'll have sometimes folks moving in with an early onset of some issue. We have residents who are 100. It's routine anymore. So the percentage who are 85 would probably be, assuming it's a very tight bell curve, it would be a large percentage of the folks who are in that range of probably 83 to 85 or 86.
I have a question for you as well. So what's the completion date on the project as it exists today?
We broke ground in early April last month, and we're forecasting an 18-month construction. We have a lot of site work to do to deal with the soils and seismic conditions. So we're planning to open towards the end of 2018.
And how do you market and pre-sell, and do you have interest already?
We've had some interest only from some public relations we've done in a general sense. We started to get some inquiries. We'll open an information center in the first cottage, the one that's already approved, probably at the end of this year, and staff that with an executive director and a marketing director, and they'll spend about 9 months or so before we open, being there and getting to know the community. And so we take pre-leases. We're defined as a CCRC, in most people's opinion, a continuing care retirement community. That's a buy-in product, like Frankie Home. Frankie has a few rental units, or Bishop Gadsden down on the south side of town. That's our definition. We're a rental alternative. We're going to be much more similar to Summerbee. And I'd love to point out, a little out of order here, I know we're being, I guess, chastised for coming back for these 4 units. Summerbee just added 4 cottages. And we know the Liberty, the South Bay project at Central Mount Pleasant has been before you a few times with changes, so I would ask a little consideration here for this minor change.
Thank you. That was going to be my next question to Ms. Farrell. Ms. Farrell, can I ask you a question, please? On projects like this, once they're completed or built, what would be the opportunity for this group to come back after completion of the approved plan and ask for these additional units at a future time?
Certainly do that. The reason this is in front of you is the plan development that was approved was very specific to 168 units. So therefore, the board required that it could, and before now, come and ask for it later.
So depending on the popularity, where we are with the growth, where we are with other review, just asking the question. Thank you. Anyone else have any other questions of the applicant or Ms. Farrell? Thank you. So, we have an amended, so we do have an amended motion and amended second on the table, and that includes the addition of the sidewalks. Ms. Farrell, would you call for the vote?
Is the motion to approve?
Yes.
What?
Mr. Bernard?
No.
Mr. Bernard votes no. Mr. Bustos?
No.
Mr. Bustos votes no. Mr. Carrier?
Yes.
Mr. Carrier votes yes. Mr. Garge?
Aye.
Mr. Garge votes yes. Mr. Haney?
No.
Mr. Haney votes no. Mr. Owens?
No.
Mr. Owens votes no. Mr. Santos?
No.
Mr. Santos votes no. Mr. Smith?
Aye.
Mr. Smith votes yes. Mayor Page?
No.
Mayor Page votes no.
Thank you. Motion fails, but thank you for coming.
Thank you.
We have item number 4 now. It's an annexation on Indy Lori Lane, and item number 5 is the zoning on that property.
Madam Mayor, I am going to recuse myself on this matter for items 4 and 5.
Thank you.
Item 4 is requesting the first reading of annexation. This property is located on Laura Lane, about an acre.
have a motion and a second for approval of annexation. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
One no. Mr. Bremer?
First reading, ordinance number 17022, is ordinance providing for the annexation of approximately 342 acre tract of land located at 2157 Annual Laurel Lane, identified by TMS number 55800000051, and depicted as Lot 3B in Boot Hall Tract, with plat recorded by the Charleston County RMC Office, in Book DB, page 811.
Thank you. Item number 5 is the first reading of the zoning on that property. Ms. Farrell, they're asking for R3.
Yes. The property is currently in Charleston County, where the zoning is special management 3 as part of their Sweetgrass District overlay as well, which allows 3 units per acre. The zoning that has been requested is typically considered to be a medium density type of the zoning district, therefore the zoning is not consistent with the future land use map. The comprehensive plan reflects community conservation, which is 3 dwelling units per acre. This has, I think most of y'all know, we've got, certainly have seen a lot of requests over the recent years along Annie Laura Lane. So the map that you see on the screen reflects those properties that have been annexed and zoned as R3 in the tan color. And then over in the corner there, at the end of Annie Laura, is the property in question, which is asking for R3. They did not request to amend the comprehensive plan. And so they will be potentially limited in terms of what type of subdivision may occur. The Planning Committee, Planning Commission reviewed this and they unanimously recommended denial of the request. The Planning Committee also recommended denial of the zoning request by a vote of 3 to 1.
Motion to deny.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to deny. Any questions for Ms. Farrell? I have people signing up to speak. I have people signing up to speak. Yes, ma'am, we're getting ready to call you now.
Scott Saucier.
We'll call you as you signed up. Yes, ma'am.
I hadn't signed up, but I was just sorry.
That's fine. Absolutely. State your name and address for the record. We'll give you 2 minutes.
I'm Walter Sherwin with First Source Engineering, 886, representing Mr. Scott Saltier, property owner of 2157 Annie Laura. Pretty clear that this area is undergoing a positive transition, which has prompted this annexation request. Like Christina said, most of the properties that are in the town on Annie Laura are already zoned R3. If you actually go and drive down Annie Laura, to me, it definitely does have the feel of an R3 subdivision already. Additionally, the town recently taken ownership of Annie Laura. Roadway is part of an R3 subdivision at the end, which connects to 12 Drive. My client wants to be in the town and wants his property to be zoned appropriately and in keeping with the rest of the subdivision. And happy to answer any questions.
What would you like to do next?
Question. What is on the existing lot right now?
There's an existing, I believe it's an older ranch style home on the property.
Is someone living there?
This is Jim Walker's house. Moved there.
Thank you.
Scott, did you want to speak, sir? Okay.
I'm Scott Saucier, 2616 Turner Place. I purchased 2157 in 2001. Lived there until 2007. Acquainted with most people who live there now. We got obviously new things going on. Before I came here, I went around and talked to some of the neighbors to tell them what my intent was to subdivide the land and to go with the flow of what's going on there right now. So I got this petition, I think you guys have, that's signed by most everybody on the street. And it didn't seem like I had, anybody against it, one person. And I'm not 100% sure why, but that was it. That's all, that's it.
So you can present that petition to the clerk?
Oh, okay, I'm sorry, I thought you had it.
George Freeman?
Freeman, 1450 Bowman Road. I don't know what to say. I've done this so many times and I'm running out of words. Only thing I can say is that I wish the young lady stayed who spoke earlier, because she could be the poster child for the sweetgrass basket overlay. Because that's exactly what the sweetgrass basket overlay was about. If you look at that area where you have Quail Hollow, Point West, I think, Wando, I can't remember the other one, but most of the subdivision and Ravens Run, there's only one house per acre. When we did the sweetgrass overlay, we took into consideration of everything in the area, and 3 houses per acre was the one thing that fit in this area. And at the same time, we could preserve the historic community. It's a good number for development, and it's a good number to preserve the community. What more can I say? That's it. Thank you.
Renee Potey?
Bless you.
I reside at 262 Furman Farm Place. I'm here to support my brother Scott. I just want to say that Scott, the sweetgrass basket overlay was placed on the property, from what I've reviewed, to preserve the sweet basket culture. And in the last few years, the neighborhood has been changing for the better. The problem with this neighborhood is there's a safety issue. And at the last meeting, we had several homeowners line up to say that they were very concerned for their families, their children, and it is a safety factor. The lot that Scott owns is under 1 acre and therefore meets all the requirements controlled by the development standards and qualifies for the R3 zoning. And the sweetgrass basket overlay was placed in 2006. It's now 11 years later. It's time to kind of ask everybody what they want, the people that live there, and I believe he did ask all of them. They all agreed that they support his choice to divide his lot. And I don't know if I can submit anything, but this is one side of the street, and this is the other side of the street, the same street. It's the undeveloped street is where we are the safety issues are occurring. So the last thing I want to say is I think it's important to defer the vote on the annex until we hear the vote for the zoning. Thanks.
Thank you very much. You're welcome to give those to us if you'd like to submit them.
Mr. Timber?
Robert Turner, 2142 Gulf Drive, Mount Pleasant, South Carolina. I'd first like to thank the council for all the work that we have done on Annie Laurel Lane. You allowed to have all this cleaned up. Everyone was on this road. We've seen 300 tons of trash. I moved here when I was 19 years old when I got out of the Navy. My son was born here. He's a native. We watched this go. I've heard Sweet Basket overlay from Mr. Freeman and many other people. In 1980, this was woods. That was a dirt road. There was no homes on there, much less Sweet Basket or anything else. I wasn't in the Sweet Basket overlay district. I have no knowledge of what it did. What it had become is a very, very blighted area, and everyone here that has been down that road has seen that. We have managed to turn that around. We have finally had a community that's getting safer, thanks to the help of the council and Mount Pleasant planning and thoughtfulness of what needed to be happening. Fire trucks couldn't make it down our road. My neighbor's garage burned. I was in Myrtle Beach. They had to use my property in order to access the hydrant. We're now changing that and doing interconnection to where our fire trucks, our safety people, we're making things safer and better for the neighborhood. Out of every resident, with the exception of one, voted that they wanted to do this. We're talking an impact of 2 lots from 1 lot, the potential of 2 vehicles. And that impact is marginal versus the gain that it gives to the community. I could see an area, if it was an upscale area, and I invite council, my home is there for each and every one of you. Come spend a week in our neighborhood. And I assure you, you will see the need for these projects to be done and cleaned up. The home in question is an 800 square foot home in very dire need of help. There's no way that Scott can turn that into any kind of viable newer property and not be able to subdivide the property. It just doesn't work with the economics, with both the permitting, impact fees upon those, the water, the sewer. So what I would ask council to please look at the areas in which we're doing, not just the fact of cannonballing it into just one area, sweet basket. The sweet basket, well, nice baskets, I would take it.
Thank you for your
Thank
2
you.
minutes.
S. Zimmerman?
I don't think I need to say my name, right? Good to see you all again. Thank you for allowing me to speak. Robert S. Timmerman. This is my father. Live at 2142 Gulf Drive. I'm a second generation native. And meeting he went to school with my mother. I've been in this neighborhood my entire life. Bought the home when I turned 18. And I've lived here forever. Like I said, I had no knowledge of the Sweetgrass Basket overlay. What I will say is everybody just seems to forget this. There's an option to deed restrict the property if you're concerned about future annexing. And our concern is the Sweetgrass Basket overlay and the precedence that it sets. So if you get one property that switches and you get more and you get another and you get another to add on. However, if you deed restrict that property in the future, it kind of limits your uses with that. So if there is a problem, even though the lot of his size doesn't allow for more than 2 lots to be subdivided onto, if it's further deed restricted, then you limit that even more. So if there's a concern about either traffic or violating the Sweetgrass Basket overlay, which I never received any notifications in the mail that vote was even going on when it went into place, or saw any signs about it. And again, I've lived here my entire life. I think that's a viable option, and it kind of appeases everybody. It's a compromise on both parts. That's all I need to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Kenneth Gillespie?
My name is Kenneth Gillespie. I live at 2182 Indian Lane. And I appreciate what Mr. Freeman has talked about with the Sweetgrass Overlay District. However, I'd like to point out, when that was passed, this street was already under new development and for improvement. And there were 9 new lots already designated to be installed, and they were completed in 2007. The street has redeveloped itself now. It's a nice community. We have a couple of older homes on the street. We have Scott who wants to redevelop his, and I think that would be a good thing for the rest of the neighbors. The homeowners on that street, the property owners, 87% of them have signed that petition and are wanting this to be done. It's not like 1 or 2 people that are objecting. That's all we have is one person objecting. So I would encourage you to please consider that and please approve it, because I would like to see our street redeveloped all the way where it should be. We're not affecting anybody in the Sweetgrass area on this street. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. That's all we have signed up to speak. Mr. Jefferson, would you like to speak?
Yes, please.
Please approach the council.
Good evening, my name is Louis Jefferson. I reside at 1128 McKnight Road, Mount Pleasant. I'm the current vice chair of community organization CAGE, 7 Mile, 6 Mile. I spoke on a week and a half ago on this issue, and our concern is not about the applicants and what they're requiring. Our concern is about the preservation of the Sweetgrass Overlay District. I'm sure most of you are aware that came about from a group comprised of Mount Pleasant, the county, and residents, and all of these things were given into consideration going forward. I don't think it would be a lesser community with 1 house added to it as it would with 2. I don't see the concern there. We just want to maintain. I think if there was a mistake made at all, it was the beginning of the domino effect of the Sweetgrass Overlay in this area. So when it got started, I think Mr. Freeman spoke on the danger of getting something started. I made the point, I'll make it again, it was as if the speed limit on I-26 is set and there's no consideration whether the travelers are under an emergency or just taking a joyride. It's the law. And as far as we're concerned, the Sweetgrass Overlay has its rules and its guidelines, and we would, matter of fact, prefer that these issues doesn't even come to the board to consume our time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Jefferson. Sir, would you like to speak? Please, give us your name and address for the council. We'll give you 2 minutes.
My name is Andrew Oduchowski. I live at 2170 Annie Coeur Lane. I moved there with my family earlier this year. I have a young son and another one on the way. And, I'm one of the neighbors who signed an approval for the development of the rest of the street. And, I just asked the council to complete what we started. And, the properties in question on our street are, they talk about preservation. I mean, these are run down. They're, for lack of a better word, sketchy people living there. And, it's a shame that it's not, kept up. And, we want it to be developed and look like the rest of Mount Pleasant, is coming to look like, out there. There's a lot of good progress going on. And, I'm in support of it and, just appreciate what you guys do. And if we can finish what we started on the street, it'd look amazing and everyone would feel a lot safer.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ma'am, would you like to address the council? Please step forward. Larry, how long has she got?
2 minutes.
Gina Crickio, 2616 Turban Place. Just 2 things I want to point out. My understanding is that there are many homes within the street class development overlay that are often not selling out. Money on that overlay because of the restrictions that are on those properties. Additionally, the property in question here is currently on a septic system. Anyone moving in this subdivision and annexation, you will be able to get that property off of that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Farrell. I have a question for you. The properties you identified in the brown and the hash marks, and we see the outline of the green, what are the light green zones? Community conservation. Just for open and transparency, I'd like to let everyone know I do own the piece of property in light green at the beginning of Annie Laura and 6 Mile Road. But I have nothing, I'm not recusing, I have no financial gain from the vote one way or another. So I just wanted to let you all know if it was in question. And thank you for clarifying my zoning, because I've owned that property for a long time. You know what it was. So, thank you very much. Mr. Tempest, do you have a comment?
Yeah, Madam Mayor, I just, Christiane, back when we started the Sweetgrass Basket Overlay District, it was a very public affair, correct? I mean, we took a long time, we had a lot of discussion. It wasn't just done, I'm hearing here that people didn't know it, that we did this, but it was very public, right? A lot of meetings.
It was. We did it jointly with Charleston County.
Right.
And it was led by the Coastal Community Foundation. They were the facilitator of the entire effort. But met for many months. I probably should remember because I was part of it, but I mean, I would guess it maybe have gone up to a year.
Right. I remember too, I was a part of it. A lot of these council members are fairly new, but I do remember that. And I don't remember many people coming up and opposing it. Do you?
No.
It was a while ago, but.
No, I mean, really, probably the most discussion really was about the properties on Highway 17 and the commercial, your potential for commercial.
Right. So what I'm trying to say is this was a very public affair. It wasn't like it was kind of snuck in and nobody knew about it. It was very public. Everybody had an opportunity to come and tell us what they thought. And so my opposition isn't so much against the R3. I mean, the zoning. Mine is the Sweetgrass Basket Overlay District. We keep chipping away. This council approved the 55-foot hotel, right there on Hungry Neck. Took it out of the Sweetgrass Basket. I mean, there's been multiple things that have been taken out of the Sweetgrass Basket Overlay District. We need to stop. We put this in there for a reason, and it seems to be we're chipping away at it, Pretty soon we won't have a Sweetgrass Basket Overlay District. And so that's my only opposition is that if they can do it and stay in the Sweetgrass Basket Overlay District, I'm good with it. But if they can't, then I'm going to have to be against it.
Thank you, Mr. Santos. Can you tell me the year that the Sweetgrass Basket Overlay was put in place?
It was in the mid-2000s that we put that in place. And like I said, it was a joint effort. Really, the density we changed it to community conservation. Those three are all.
Thank you. So, Gary, I hear you loud and clear, and Mr. Bremer and I have actually even spoke on this. It's time to revisit it. You know, a lot of the families that want out of the Sweetgrass overlay, they actually want out because they want to sell their properties. And they're held to a higher standard, they're restricted more. They have higher restrictions on them than people who are in the district. So I don't know the equality and the fairness, and I understand the cultural preservation point of it. But I think it's time to revisit it, I think it's time to open it, I think it's time to meet with the county again, I think it's time to meet with the neighborhoods again. Because people have a different voice today. People want to have the conversation about, I talked to a family that has a piece of property on Highway 17, it's the commercial, they've had it for sale for 20 years, and they've owned it for 3 generations. And they can't sell it because it's in the Sweetgrass Basket overlay district, and the commercial square footage limitation is how much, Mr. Earl?
It varies, and then that's along Highway 17, depending on where you are.
Right. So, you know, they can have a 10,000 square foot building as opposed to a 30,000 square foot building that's next door that doesn't have to be cultural. I just, you know, I think it's time to talk about it again. I see you, sir. Would you like to address the council? I'll give you.
Yeah, I just wanted to say,
And
I
name and
don't
address
recall
for the
getting
record.
any notice about the Sweetgrass until I came on what I'm gonna do.
Can you give us your name and address for the record?
Scott Saucier, 2616 Turner Place.
Thank you.
So I'm the owner of 2157.
Correct. I understand.
And I noticed that you asked when was it put into place, so were you notified as well as being a landowner?
I'll have to tell you honestly, I don't know if I owned the property at that time or not.
Okay, I just wanted to, I had no idea that I was in that.
Thank you.
Till now.
I don't own it by choice. It's an interesting story.
Okay. If I may, just real quick, with all due respect, Mr. Sanchez, my name is Robert Turman, 2142 Gulf Drive. I live on the property adjacent to that. I meant no disrespect by my comments and not being aware. What I meant and what I was clearly trying to say was that you guys may have had meetings, you may have had discussions on it, but there
Mr.
are.
Tillman, I'm going to call you away, please, that this is an appropriate time to have this discussion. We heard you loud and clear, and I appreciate your comments, but this is not how to pay this issue. Anyone else on the council have questions? Ms. Farrell, please introduce us.
Ms. Farrell, on the lots that are with the hash marks are in the county, correct?
That's right.
So on Annie Laura Lane, I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 additional lots that are the same size. Could all those be subdivided the same way?
It appears so. I don't know the dimensions of all those lots, but presumably if it was rezoned to R3, which is a 6,000 square foot lot, so as long as they have enough to accommodate the dimensions, zoning, there's few nuances that relate back to the comprehensive plan as well that can come into play with all of this. If it was if it became part of the larger development of Amy Laura Lane, which is mostly didn't develop so far, or redeveloped rather, by Mr. Timmerman, then a comprehensive plan amendment would be and were required in order to subdivide the lot further. Mr. Saucier develops that by himself, he can go ahead and subdivide it without having to come in with a comprehensive plan amendment, but it becomes part of larger than the density starts to apply.
Okay, do we know who owns those other parcels?
Well, I think Mr.
I heard the great one on the end, Mr. Busek, that mine's already in the town.
Oh, okay, yeah, no, I'm talking
I think
about.
most of it, they've been sold now to new homeowners.
Okay, and they bought them as a lot that they're, the size they are. We don't have any.
Those are new homes, that's new construction that you really see in brown color.
No, well, I'm just talking about the ones that are still in the hash marks in the county. So conceivably, they could again be subdivided, just if this were approved, we could go in and, or request would be made to subdivide those, and it would turn to 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12 additional homes on Annie Laura Lane alone. And that's not even mentioning Gulf Street, which may or may not be subdivided. Yes,
Yeah, no, each lot would represent two.
Thank you, Mr. Bustos. I appreciate your questions, but, you know, we're supposing, we're limited to one issue. I understand your point, but we're supposing that all these people would want to do that. Mr. Garch.
Thank you. So what we have here, we have, right, so far, we have approval of this property to be annexed. But there's a motion and a second to deny the zoning EC. Okay? We've unfortunately done that before. I understand, and folks, just so you understand, we can't place zoning on a piece of property until we annex it into the town. It's just the way it works. So we can't say, I'll hold off on the annexation and consider it zoning. So sometimes it would come across the wrong way. I don't like it, but there's nothing I can do about that. To Mr. Santos's comments, I too was here on the front end of when these discussions began, 2005, 2006, when we started talking about overlay districts. My first thought was that I thought they were a little far-reaching, but because I was green as can be, my mind's always open. Let's see where this is going. And what I mean by far-reaching is that we, in conjunction with the county, we were placing restrictive zoning for pieces of property that were not in the town of Mount Pleasant. And everybody has a different opinion on that. I get it. It didn't sit well with me, but again, I went along with the process to see what we were trying to achieve. And I fully understand exactly where this property is, being here myself, Mr. Spears, on my young life. So, Mr. Santos, I recall those meetings. I didn't go to any of them. They were very public, as public as you could make it back then. I even picked up on the fact that there were two different factions that developed during the process. And if you didn't know at the time, but you figured out later that there was a reason, because somebody was up to something, or somebody wanted to angle some reason. It's unfortunate, but it happens. And I've seen that, especially in the past couple of years, with these different factions, as we have these projects coming for us, whether it be one lot, or whether it be 13 lots, or whether it be 25. Sometimes people come in and speak against it, and then all of a sudden, 3 or 4 months later, they're in favor of it. That right there is very telling to me, very unfortunate. But back to the people that have bought this property long before the town, in a noble intent, in my opinion, nothing against the planning staff, because again, I was going for the right to be educated and learn. Noble intent to try to protect something. That noble intent was being picked apart before it even got started, in my opinion. And I have sat here for 10 years, on and off council, and I've watched it get picked apart. Some of it's good, some of it's bad. I know y'all heard me talk to y'all about the similar situation around the corner with a sweet lady that's on the property for 80 years next to Christ Church, where she wanted to be able to sell her property and she can't. These people here, I'm confident, didn't receive the notice about it. This gentleman's owned the property since 2001. Again, I know we all have different opinions about the greater cause and what we're doing. I'm reflecting back on all of it now, and it was too far of a reach for this town to place restrictive zoning on pieces of property in the county. And it's allowed people to take advantage of loopholes, and they're doing it as we speak. And I think that is just absurd. And this is as close as it comes to me, and it's not a taking, but it's as close as it comes to being a taking, in my opinion. And that, folks, the good folks I serve with, really sticks in my craw. So, thank you for allowing my comments.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your comments, Mr. Garch. We have a motion and a second to deny the rezoning. Please call for the vote.
Mr. Brimmer.
Aye.
Mr. Brimmer votes yes. Mr. Bustos.
Aye.
Mr. Bustos votes yes. Mr. Carrier.
Yes.
Mr. Carrier votes yes. Mr. Garch.
No.
Mr. Garch votes no. Mr. Haney.
Aye.
Mr. Haney votes yes. Mr. Owens. Mr. Owens recuses. Mr. Santos.
Aye.
Mr. Santos votes yes. Mr. Smith.
No.
Mr. Smith votes no. Mayor Page.
No. The motion passes. Denial.
Madam Mayor, before we move on, to help that gentleman understand what he needs to do since he's been annexed, on how he can address that so he doesn't want to be annexed. So we don't have to take a vote to do what we did, to deny the annexation. While he's still here, please.
Oh, absolutely. Ms. Farrell, he has an option, he can move forward with annexation, or he can request a deferral, or.
Well,
or
he can
withdraw.
request, yes, he can submit a request to withdraw. And they could just submit that through my office if they choose. But my staff would be happy to discuss further, make sure that he's aware of his different options.
Thank you very much, I appreciate that. Item number 6 is.
Madam Mayor, I
Yes.
just want to make it clear that I have no financial gain or interest in this particular property. I did this strictly because of the potential for perception, not that I have any gain or any fiduciary responsibility for those folks.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Item number 6 is the first reading of an amendment regarding the Old Village Historic District and accessory dwelling units.
We actually have 3 separate ordinances on the agenda tonight. Those of you who have followed and we've spoken about it in the last couple of months in the planning committee report know that the Old Village Commission has been working on their guidelines and also have specifically proposed some amendments to the Old Village Commission section of the code. So the first one that is in front of you for consideration this evening is with respect to accessory structures. So this would be all types of accessory structures. And this would limit the height on the accessory structures to 20 feet and not more than 1.5 stories, and it would also specify the location to be sited behind or to the rear of the primary structure. And so that is as was recommended or requested proposed by the Old Village Commission, and was also reviewed by the Planning Commission as well as Planning Committee, who've all recommended approval.
Move for approval. Second.
I have a motion and a second for approval. I do have one question, Ms. Farrell. If this passes first reading and then ultimately second reading, when will this go into effect?
Reading, unless you'll specify otherwise.
And I know that there was some question, so could we, would council consider that upon accepted applications? Accepted applications are accepted. Could you explain to me the difference between applied for and accepted? Just so my.
Well, there's a couple of different things. If somebody is moving through the process right now with an accessory structure, whether it's a garage or an ADU or whatever it may be, and they receive approval from the Old Village Commission before final reading, they will be vested in the current ordinance, what we have currently on the books. So that's really the trigger with it. As long as they have that approval, the application process with the building permit is not going to matter. This will not change that. They'll be vested with that particular height or location that's been approved by all.
Thank you. I'm just not a fan of unintended consequences. Thank you. So we have a motion second for approval. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And yes, sir.
It's first reading, ordinance number 17024, an ordinance to amend zoning code section 156.313D of chapter 156 of Mount Pleasant Code of Ordinances, providing limitations on location, height, and number of stories for accessory buildings in the Old Village Historic District.
Item number 2 is the parking, and we again hear that the planning commission committee recommends approval of this item as well.
Move for approval.
Second.
I have a motion second for approval. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And yes, have it.
First reading, ordinance number 17025, an ordinance to amend zoning code section 156.313E of chapter 156 of the Mount Pleasant Code of Ordinances pertaining to residential parking requirements in the Old Village Historic District.
Thank you. Mr. Bennett, you were signed up to speak, and I apologize. Did you need to speak on these issues?
I just wanted to advocate, support, and take care of that.
Okay, well, thank you very much, and I appreciate your service to the town, and I appreciate your time here with us tonight. Item number 8 is the first reading to amend it according to the Old Village Historic District with membership requirements, and this is to allow one member of the commission to reside outside of the district.
Motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for approval. Any other questions?
Just one question. Would this be an expert person, or would this be an at-large, no architectural requirement?
We did not put any restrictions when we had the conversation. This would be an at-large person. Certainly, we review their resume.
I understand, but we do
No,
have a
we're
requirement now.
putting no restrictions. It's my understanding, Ms. Farrell, we didn't put any restrictions.
Okay,
No restrictions to any type of expertise.
okay, thank you.
I have have a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, and the ayes have it.
First reading, ordinance number 17027, an ordinance to amend zoning code section 156.162 and of chapter 156 of the Mount Pleasant Code of Ordinances pertaining to prohibited signs to provide for an exemption to certain interactive, I'm reading wrong.
Item number 8, sir.
First reading ordinance, first reading ordinance number 17026, an ordinance to amend zoning code section 156.430A of chapter 156 of the Mount Pleasant Code of Ordinances regarding Old Village Historic District Commission membership requirements.
Thank you. Item number 9 is the electronic signs that you were reading earlier. This is pertaining to prohibited signs to provide for an exemption.
Motion approved. Second.
Have a motion and second for approval. Any other comments? Mr. Haney?
Just for everybody's edification and mine too, and the public, we are talking about the fact that some of our ATMs and drive-up order machines technically do not comply, right? So we're not talking about electronic billboards, we're not talking about flashing lights, we're talking about something that you drive or walk up to that happens to have digital or LED display that you have to interact with. Just wanted to make sure. Thank you.
I have a motion and a second. Any other comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, and the ayes have it.
First reading ordinance number 17027, an ordinance to amend zoning code section 156.162 and of chapter 156 of the Mount Pleasant Code of Ordinances pertaining to prohibited signs to provide for an exemption to certain interactive electronic reader boards.
Thank you. Item number 10 is a request to extend the vesting period for the market at Mill Creek on Highway 41.
Yes, ma'am. As you stated, this is in accordance with the town ordinances as well as the state regulations. The vesting period, the initial vesting period is about to expire on this particular impact assessment approval. Therefore, the developer is coming to you to request a 1-year extension on this approval. They have been going through the DRB process. They've received preliminary. They have not received final yet. Once they do receive final, that would further vest them, but that has not been received at this point.
Move for
Thank you,
approval.
Ms. Farrell.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for approval. The motion also had a request that the legal staff clarify the vested rights issues with the state and with the town of Mount Pleasant. Mr. Peccarini, can you tell me when we will hear that information? So we'll bring it to the legal committee for review. It'll be up to the council, so. Thank you. Mr. Boosters?
Yeah, and we talked about that in planning, and it was, so everyone will know. From the way it's written, or the way it sounds, the state legislature is requiring us to vote for something, which is strange that they would tell us how we must vote. So the planning committee in this discussion felt that perhaps the intent was that if the developer met all the requirements, that the staff would look at it and say they've met the requirements and they've applied within the time frame, and it could be, I think it's called a ministerial duty rather than a vote of council. And some of these can get up to 5, and I just don't see this coming, this same, one project could come 4 or 5 times to us that. So we had discussed asking the legal staff to query, I guess, the AG or whoever to determine and come back to us and say whether or not the intention of that, of what the legislature did was to tell us how we're supposed to vote on something, or to say that it's approved if they meet certain prerequisites, and in that case, the staff could look at it, make that determination, and move it along.
Thank you, Mr. Boosters. Mr. Birch?
2 things. Joe, I appreciate your points. Mr. Pagani, I thought we just come up before with Boulevard Phase 2. We got it, the state stepped in and said, oh no, you will conform. Can you help my memory?
That would be in court.
Thank you. Okay. So this matter here, how is it different?
So we treat each application differently, is all I can say.
Okay. That's fine. Second thing, if I can get Mr. Morrison to come to the podium, please.
Yes, sir, Mr. Morrison?
I warned him not to call, so I woke him was talking about, I don't want to lose sight of the issue of this applicant, because they are on the hook for a signal at this intersection. And Brad and I have been doing this a long time. It seems like I'm just getting old, Brad, but as we try and help SEDOT evolve to the 21st century, folks, there's this wonderful mechanism with SEDOT that they won't put in a traffic light until everything's built. And I'm just sitting there looking at it. So what we've tried to do on this one is to move forward and get a signal put in prior to everything being built. And I know these folks have been pretty aggressive on their end. Brad, if you could just enlighten all of us as to how we can make sure that this happens so we don't have to wait for everything to be built and then put a signal in.
It is true that they have to meet signal warrants. Now, whether those warrants can be shown as predictive, estimating based upon future traffic, or actual, the DOT, I think, is getting a little softer on that when they realize it's imminent, so that they can time the actual installation, at the same time the impact versus whatever, half a year later. So, and there had been some discussions with this developer about going ahead and doing the warrant study to see if it's perhaps meets now. And they indicated they'd look into that, and if it were, they would install it.
The long story short, the SEDOT is being more receptive, more open-minded to this, and realizes that, we can put lights in before everything's built.
That's what I'm saying.
I just want everybody, hope that didn't bore you all to tears, but it is, because there's another pressing issue on the other side of 17 at Charleston National, where a high school's being built, a stadium might be built, a Costco's getting built, and DOT's, it's the same thing. Well, we gotta wait for everything to be built out. Guys, Carolina Park doesn't have to answer to us. They've got a nice agreement. They're marching on anyway. Brad's doing a great job as always, but I just wanted to make sure that everybody was aware of that.
Thank you, Mr. Carter. Mr. Henry?
In what year was the impact assessment approved by this council?
2 years ago. That's July 2 years ago.
July of 15 or of, okay, July. Is it possible that if that impact assessment were to occur today, that there are significant changes?
I don't know, we'd have to.
I mean, like, for instance, was Highway 41 have times at which it has an F level of service two years ago, as we know it does today?
It's the same section, that one section, Joe Rouse down to 17, yes, it's existing, fail like at that time.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Santos.
And Madam Mayor, if you remember correctly, vote was 8-1, I was the one that voted against it. And I voted against it, one of the main reasons I voted against it was the fact that they're putting the 12 pumps up on the front of the property, that would be right on 41. All the big boats would be going in there fueling up, and the cars coming and going, it's just too much congestion. I like the way they did Joe Rouse Road, where you have to come off of 41 and drive back in to get your gas. I think it caused less congestion. So I'm gonna be voting for this as well. I think I should have done due diligence and done their work and been prepared to do it. Once again, they're coming and asking the town to give them more time. I would certainly like another crack at this and have council be able to look at it. I'm probably in the minority though, but I'm voting against it, simply because of the same reason I voted against it last time. I didn't like where they were placing the pumps.
Thank you very much, Mr. Santos, and I appreciate your comments as well, Mr. Haney, but that was supposition, and that's not the issue before us. Mr. Pagliarini, for clarity, the approval before us today set forth in our own town ordinance and in the state statute to, if a developer comes for an extension of vested rights, that we are to approve the vested rights period.
Yes, ma'am, that's essentially right. Our town code 156.041D is essentially required by state code, and this is an extension of the vesting period for 1 year.
So we're not approving a project, we're not approving an impact assessment, we're not reviewing the impact assessment as it became for us two years ago. we are following our own town ordinance, 156.49D, as required by state law, correct? 156.49D, I believe it was. Correct?
Well, that's the request, ma'am, is for extension of that.
I appreciate it. Mr. Smith, did you have a comment?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. While you're going through the list of items that we're not doing, I just want to make sure it's clear that, as our, says in the agenda here, a separate motion was made for the committee to seek legal staff. So that legal opinion is not part of this motion that I seconded. Just want to make sure that's clear.
Thank you. Mr. Garza, did you have a comment?
I do, I'm not a fan of these extensions. Obviously, I watched it happen for 10 years with departments on Rifle Range Road tied to the pile because I did not support that project in 2007. But Mr. Haney asked a very good question, in my opinion. What was the impact then and what is the impact now? So that's something we need to consider. I can't do anything about these extensions and how they're allowable. We can ask to get an opinion on it, of course. But, you know, I think y'all already know my opinion on impact assessments. And Mr. Aguirre, you take it easy. I'm not going to say anything on record about it. But it's, you know, our council voted unanimously to put in Mr. Santos to rezone that property, to make this allowable, to remove 50 homes. Then the impact assessments were met, which then of course you voted against, which is fine. Again, I'm getting off topic, but I thought, Mr. Haney, you asked a very good question. Because next thing you know, it's going to be 2022, there's still extensions. Hopefully by then we'll have a 4-lane road. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I do have a motion and a second approved. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Can you verify your noes? 4 noes.
I'm sorry, Mr. 1, 2, 3 down there.
Motion passes. Thank you. Moving on to old business, we have already discussed the flooding on Middle Street. First on the agenda is the rezoning. Yes, certainly. We'll take a short 3-minute break, please.
Well, we all noticed the governor vetoed the gas tax. Great. That's what we did.
Thank you.
Larry, go buy dinner. Boy, Sam Smith.
Somebody kill Bob.
Pay attention.
Sorry, sir. Sorry, sir. By the way.
Remember his car still running?
Yeah.
Cover boilers. I'll veto this if y'all override me.
George, you're fired.
Oh, I couldn't have started without you anyway. Look in there. All right, I believe we have a quorum. Are y'all okay with moving forward? I don't know where our council members are.
They're coming.
They're discussing the last
All right, we have a quorum. We'll move forward. So we are under old business, and under final reading is the mixed use. This is the long PDMUSU plan development to AV business, a piece of property on Johnny Dodds Boulevard. Mr. Earl?
Yes, we saw this last month, extension is for medical offices, but they've asked for area wide business, and it'll be part of the urban corridor overlay district, on First Street.
I have a motion and a second for final reading. Any questions? Mr. Haney?
If I remember correctly, this is the one that by doing this, it removes the possibility of it going residential, is that correct?
Yeah, the plan development is only allowed for multifamily, so this will allow instead for area wide business.
Thank you. Have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And the ayes have it.
Final reading, ordinance number 17014, an ordinance to rezone from GVMUSU plan development mixed use urban district to AV area wide business district, approximately 2.98 acre tract of land comprising two parcels located at 1081 Johnny Dodds Boulevard, identified by TMS numbers 53500000260 and 53500000077, and depicted on the plat recorded by the Charleston County RMC office in Book L10, page 331. Subject properties to remain in the UCOD Urban Corridor Overlay District.
Thank you. Item number 2 is the final reading for an annexation on Grove River Ferry Road.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion, we refer item 2 and 3. Second.
I have a motion and a second to defer both items as requested by the applicant. Any other questions?
Just back to council.
Just for 1 month deferral to where, Larry?
1 month deferral to here.
To here?
Back to council.
That's all applicant wanted was for one deferral.
Thank you. So we have a
I just
motion.
wondered if it was coming here at planning committee.
Thank you, Mr. Garch, for clarifying that issue for us. We have a motion and a second for deferral.
Can I just ask what the reason for deferral is?
Ms. Farrell, do you have no other reasons? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? And the ayes have it. I would ask for the sake of time, if you have a committee report that does not require action, please turn it into the clerk.
Madam Mayor, I just have one important item I just want to read.
And that's
Mine.
fine.
Bids and purchases met and unanimously approved contract with Gulfstream Construction Company in the amount of $1,013,430.34. Construction additional turn lane from Joe Rouse Road to South Carolina Highway 41. Bring a little bit of relief to the folks on 41.
Thank you. And Gary, I by no means imply that each and every report and issue is not
Well, I know,
important
I know.
committee. Just have a lot more business to do tonight. So moving to planning committee, I believe that there is some action that needs to be taken. Mr.
There's a
Griffin?
couple of items, Mayor, that I think the council needs to.
Thank you.
The first item, there was a request from the Old Village Historic District for approval to hire a consultant to update for the commission guidelines. Planning committee had concerns about that and recommended not moving forward with a consultant on the update, primarily around financial issues. So I only raised that because of the budget bill later today. That would not be part of the budget request.
Thank you. And you're not putting it in a motion, a formal motion to deny. We're just, nothing came out of committee, so we're not dealing with it this
Just
council.
information. I did want to also mention that we discussed the Housing Task Force recommendations to hire a part-time consultant to implement the task force recommendations. That is not a vote coming out of the planning committee, but that money is included in the budget that we'll be voting on tonight, and the committee was supportive of that decision.
Well, thank you. I see important member of our task force here on the front row. We appreciate all their hard work on that, and it's a very important discussion as we move forward with affordable housing.
Thanks, Sally.
Thank you. Thank you for your work, Sally, and thank you for your report, Mr. Bremer. Police, legal, judicial had 2 action items. They will be taken up under council new business. Recreation committee.
We have,
Mr. Carey.
we have 3 action items, Madam Mayor, and they'll be covered under council business, new business.
Including number 3, 3 needs to be dealt with here, sir.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's correct. Consideration to eliminate the resident rate for Charleston County non-Mount Pleasant residents at the senior center. This was discussed at committee at length and was moved forward to council for full vote.
Is that a motion?
It's a motion.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Mr. Garch, you have a question?
Yes, clarity, please. Consideration to eliminate the resident rate for Charleston County non-Mount Pleasant residents.
Yes, sir. The Charleston County Council has offered financing to help us subsidize the non-Mount Pleasant County residents that use the senior center. We have not received that funding after repeated requests, so the consideration is to double the rate for people who live in the county and are non-Mount Pleasant residents, but are members of our senior center.
I would just caution us, because when we say caution to eliminate the resident rate, Charles County doesn't say in here that we're doubling the rate.
Thank you, but the rate, the ask for the rate is double.
Right.
There-
I understand
actual
that. I know that. I'm a member of the committee and I could not make it, so I knew ahead of time, but when you read this, that's not what, it doesn't say what we're doing, so.
Thank you, I appreciate that. And I know you had an excused absence that day, so, Mr. Haney, do you have?
Yes, as a member of the committee, Paul, I just let you know, as we were talking about it, I think the deciding factor for us was the fact that we have Berkeley County residents paying the $250 and Charleston County residents not. And so I think when Mr. Carey and I looked at it, we thought, well, that's kind of crazy since we're not getting the offset anymore, so we just make it the same because we've already got non-Mount Pleasant residents paying the $250. Right, it was doubling.
I mean, thank you, I get it, I'm just saying, you read this,
Right.
there's no way you know.
Mr. Haney, Mr. Carrier, would you please amend your motion to include the fee for the non-resident Mount Pleasant?
I'll be glad to. It's going from $125 to $250 a year.
And can we get amended second, Mr. Santos?
Amendment second, yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Okay, we have a motion, amended motion and second that clarifies the amount. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Mr. Smith? Nay. Thank you very much. Administrator's report, Mr. Moore?
Only one thing, Mayor, and that is to thank you and council support, as well as the worker staff for At the Blessing Complete. It was very successful.
Thank you very much. Council new business. The first thing is a resolution authorizing the mutual aid and law enforcement agreement between the city of North
Move to adopt the resolution.
I have a motion and a second to adopt. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? And the ayes have it.
Resolution 17051.
Thank you. Item number 2 is to ordinance to repeal and replace the code of ordinances relating to fire prevention.
Move to approve. Second.
I have a motion and a second, and just for clarity, since we talk about opency and transparency, that allows us to burn fire pits in the evening. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And the ayes have it.
First reading ordinance number 17028, ordinance to repeal and replace section 92.30 of chapter 92 of the Town of Mount Pleasant Code of Ordinances entitled Fire Prevention pertaining to residential burning.
Item number 3 is the resolution approved for the bylaws, amendment of the bylaws of the cultural
Move to adopt the
corporation.
resolution.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And the ayes have it.
Resolution 17052.
Item number 4 is the first reading of a lease agreement
Move
with.
to first reading.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for extension of the church lease. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And the ayes have it.
First reading ordinance number 17029, ordinance to approve of a lease agreement with Shin Creek Presbyterian Church relative to the property located at 302 Fifth Street.
Item number 5 is a resolution to enter into a lease purchase agreement.
Move for approval.
Second.
Excuse me, Madam Mayor, is there any way we can kind of make it a little bit clearer for the audience what kind of lease purchase agreement we're?
It's for budgetary items, capital equipment.
Okay, just want to make sure.
Thank you. So we have
Just
a,
if the name be fussing at us if we know.
we have a, We have a motion and a second for adoption of lease purchase agreement. All in favor?
Aye.
And the ayes have it.
Resolution 17055.
Item number 6 is a resolution to establish a CIP assessment and comprehensive maintenance fund.
Move for approval.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And the ayes have it.
Resolution 17054.
Last but not least is a resolution authorizing the application of loan from the South Carolina State Water Pollution Control in the amount of $9,646,000 to finance construction of stormwater sewer improvements in town of Mount Pleasant.
Move to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And the ayes have it.
Resolution 1705.
We have some old business. Ms. Cutco, we've got the final reading of an ordinance to adopt and appropriate a budget for the town of Mount Pleasant for fiscal year 2018.
Move for approval.
Second.
I
thought you were calling her up.
I just called her out. That's all. I have a motion and a second for approval. All in favor?
Aye.
And the ayes have it.
Final reading.
No, I'm sorry, we have a no.
Final reading, ordinance number 17018, an ordinance to adopt and appropriate a budget for the town of Mount Pleasant for fiscal year 2018.
Item number 2 is the final reading to amend the code of ordinances as it relates to a fee for refuse containers.
Move for approval. Second.
I have a motion and a second for approval. Any other questions, comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Can you show, raise your hands, show the noes? We have 2 noes. Thank you very much.
Final reading, ordinance number 17017, orders to amend paragraph A of section 150.002 of chapter 150 of the Mount Pleasant Code of Ordinances to include fee for refuse containers.
Item number C is,
Excuse me, Madam Mayor, just once again for clarity, can you just have some explain why you're doing this so, they understand why?
absolutely, Mr. Peel, as it's stated today, everyone in the town of Mount Pleasant is issued a refuse container, correct? And if there's a need for a second refuse container, what can the resident do?
Applying for a second $7.
And that's what we are doing. We are allowing residents to get a second container for a fee of $70. Thank you.
So the first one's free, just want to make sure everybody understands that the second one, if you want the second one, it's $70.
Right, not that we're encouraging anyone to get a second can. Hopefully you recycle and have very little refuse in that first can.
But just for further clarity, that is not for a replacement for a damaged can, correct?
No, you are entitled to replacement of a damaged can. I had an issue, I had to have a replacement can. They came out and reviewed my can. We used to reline cans. My can was not reliable. My can needed to be replaced. So I have a new trash can at no cost to the town of Pleasant, and I'm very excited that Mr. Bill's crew took care of that for me. Thank you.
Be careful back on that driveway.
Mr. Hayes.
Are we finished with council? Not finished, but have we moved through all the council new and old business? Because I have a question, it may be a point of order.
No, sir, we have not.
Okay, I'll wait till you finish that part.
Thank you, sir. We have a motion and a second for final reading. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Oh, we had that. We did take a vote. You're absolutely right, Mr. Channing.
Okay.
Point of order?
I was thinking we were. Yes, would this be an appropriate time, and I'll ask our parliamentarian, for us to have a motion for council to vote on that would instruct our staff or the water supply committee to adopt a resolution in response to the news that came out yesterday about Google's application moving forward to remove 1.5 million gallons of water a day from an aquifer that is important to this town. What I'm asking you is not that we vote on a resolution tonight, because we would need to meet all the FOIA requirements, but that we have a that we get our staff to draft a resolution that we could vote on at our next meeting.
Second.
For clarification, Mr. Pagliarini, would it be appropriate for us to add that to the agenda to vote on without it being advertised prior to the meeting?
I think the best thing to do is, what we can do is just ask for it to be on the next agenda. And we'll do that. And
I think sending it to the water supply committee, right? Isn't that what you said?
Well, yeah, what I'm saying is that we would agree that there would be a resolution at the next meeting to be voted on, as opposed to voting at the next meeting to come up with the resolution, because time is of the essence with this application.
Well, I think in our typical process, and we can ask for anything on there, so what I suggest is that it go to the appropriate committee, and then it'll be shifted right, same result.
Okay.
And we certainly ask the chair to call a special committee meeting so that we can speed it up.
If you want. I just don't think there's any reason to vote for us to prepare one, because that isn't on the agenda, but if you ask for it to be on committee and ask for it to be on the agenda, it gets the same.
And the chair here is just talking about calling a special board committee meeting.
Thank you. Mr. Carey?
I thought we just did this with the letter that all of us are to sign to DHEC before the next meeting, where the vote would be taken.
We agreed to do a letter. I sent you an email yesterday. Yesterday at the DCD-COG meeting, the full Charleston, Dorchester County COG voted unanimously to approve a groundwater management program. It was made very, very clear that we will have no vote on the Google issue. We have water supply and waterworks who have provided us a resolution. DHEC will be voting on that on the 11th, May 11th, I believe is the date. I sent an email yesterday asking y'all, in light of the new resolution, if you'd like to move forward, and I haven't heard a request yet, so thank you.
So just also note for the council record, resolution 16-101, a resolution supporting a request for the South Carolina Department of Health and Environmental Control to require alternatives for groundwater withdrawal permits submitted by Maguro Enterprises LLC was passed in the fall.
Yes, that was a resolution that was already done. I think he's asking for a new resolution or a different resolution. Thank you, Mr. Smith.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As your water supply chairman, I'm very anxious to speak on this issue, and your water commissioner as well. If we will recall, I would say that I've had no communications with Councilman Payne prior to this evening, but hearing the request, I would just remind all of us, we championed this cause already early in the stage of the Water Supply Committee. As referenced, we have this. I'm not sure that we necessarily need to have a new vote to vote on what we've already approved. Perhaps we could rescind what's already sent. There was unanimous support, as I recall, on the position that the town took, along with Mount Pleasant Water Works, along with Charleston Waterkeepers, along with many other elected officials, to make sure that Maguro in this DHEC water withdrawal process were being good stewards of our aquifer. So I appreciate, agree, continue to agree, and support this cause. And I believe we've already done this. And if we review our minutes, perhaps we could just resubmit what's already done, because what's being asked, as I understand it, has already been done.
Thank you, Mr. Haney.
I would just like to address and ask as a matter of information that we won't take action because it probably would not comply with FOIA, but this is the letter of May 2nd from Mount Pleasant Waterworks. This is public information. And I quote, "There are other elements of a resource management plan that are missing, such as goals, measures, aquifer conditions, long-range water demand projections, permit review processes, and plan update processes. We strongly believe that given more time and true local engagement, the plan can be both meaningful and successful. At this point, the plan SCDHEC has presented falls short." That is the stance of our waterworks, which I believe you are our ex officio member. And so we've got waterworks saying, please do not pass this plan, please do not act on this plan. It's missing these things like measures, aquifer conditions, long-range water demand projections. And yet Mount Pleasant, being represented there, has voted to move this along. And I, along with a lot of our constituents, are very confused about why somebody or Mount Pleasant is voting to move this plan along, and our own waterworks is saying this plan is not ready to be moved along.
Well, thank you, Mr. Manning, I appreciate your comments. You were certainly welcome to be at the COG meeting yesterday. It was a unanimous vote of the full COG. Mr. Smith, did you have other comments?
Yeah, I just want to make sure that we're all clear on the issue. What was just referenced is the groundwater surface use plan that was required before any permits from DHEC will be issued, which is a part of the journey and a part of the process. The position the Water Supply Committee and the town took, as I stated earlier, along with Waterworks, along with Charleston Waterkeepers, and is still united in denying the permit to be issued. It's not the groundwater surface use plan, which is 20 years overdue. And from the Water Commissioner's perspective, the concern is the hurried nature in which DHEC is now pushing this process, this plan through. But the position from the beginning remains the same. Don't issue the permit, regardless of the plan.
So I'm sorry, may I get?
Certainly, Mr. Smith, are you? Yes, Mr. Hayes?
So your stance and the general manager of Mount Pleasant Waterworks are at odds then, is what you're saying? Because his letter of May 2nd said this plan is not ready, it falls short, and with more time, that given more time and true local engagement, the plan can be both meaningful and successful, but at present it falls short. So I hear you fully supporting it, but the director of Waterworks saying it is not ready for prime time.
Mr. Haney, I can reply. Mr. Duffy was at the COG meeting yesterday. He did not speak against the plan. Matter of fact, there were amendments made to the plan. He was in support of the amendments made to the plan, and he did not speak against us accepting the plan. He was at the meeting yesterday.
Okay, may I
So
make a
prior
point
to
in
May 2nd.
response? I would like for this letter to be entered into our minutes.
Certainly.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, if I may just please.
I'll take those.
Mr. Haney's last statement on that is, no, sir, Mr. Haney, directly, you are not accurately stating my position on this, and I'm sorry that I'm unable to communicate to you at a level that we're able to connect, but I will restate my original position. The town of Mount Pleasant Waterworks, and everyone is unanimous and stands behind denying the permit. And I am a water commissioner who voted on the approval of that letter. And I stand firm in that position, so your statement is inaccurate that I'm at odds with the general manager. But I appreciate you seeking clarification. Thank you. I have no further comments.
Thank you. We have a need to go into executive session to discuss. Well, the parliamentarian has suggested that there would be no action taken. This is not an
Just
advertisement.
send it to the committee, though, I thought, not to vote on the issue, but to send it to the board.
It can just be placed on.
It needs to be put on the agenda.
Okay.
We can prepare a resolution.
So now I remove my second.
We have a need to go into executive session for legal and contractual issues. A discussion of second amended employment agreement and a discussion of contractual matter concerning Shem Creek Park Phase 3. We also have action, there may be post-executive action, so we may take that. We may have to be reconvened. So we have a motion? I don't have a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.